Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. A number of y'all expressed interest in hand thread chasing, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about thread chasing. I want to show you, number one, the minimum essential items you're going to need to chase threads. Secondly, we're going to look a little bit about some of the technique. And thirdly, my goal is to hopefully get y'all to give it a try. I know some of y'all may have a pair of hand thread chasers and haven't even tried them yet, so hopefully I'll motivate you to do that. In this video, we're going to look at three different considerations. We're going to start off with tools. The first consideration of tools is what size thread chasers are you going to use. Different sizes for different purposes, but there are some distinct differences. Let me just talk about that briefly. The first consideration of thread chasing, of course, under tools is the actual thread chasers themselves. They come in pairs, one for the external thread chasing and the other one for the internal or the female thread chasing. There are multiple sizes, but common sizes are 20 thread per inch, 16 thread per inch, and 10 thread per inch. I suggest a good middle of the road is the 16 thread per inch. That's what I recommend for starting out. 20 teeth per inch, actually a little finer, easier to cut with, but you've got to have much more finer wood, what I call uranium enriched wood, expensive wood such as boxwood or African blackwood. 16 threads per inch, you can generally cut on some domestic wood such as dogwood, Osage orange, Bradford pear, mountain mahogany. There may be some others. 10 thread per inch are more difficult to learn with because it travels faster when you're thread chasing. You're going to want a smaller tool rest, and you're going to want a tool rest that has been dressed. That is, no nicks or scratches that's going to interfere with the hand thread chaser sliding across. And the third aspect of tools, there are a number of ancillary tools, which I'm really not going to spend any time in this video because that's subject of a whole separate video, but that's some type of tool to cut a recess and for doing the interior threads, an armrest. Most of these you can buy them, or in this case you can make them. The second consideration for hand thread chasing is wood. Generally, you need you need dry wood. It needs to be very tight grained, very smooth. You generally don't want any figure. And the best woods tend to be woods that aren't domestic. They're generally imported. Typically, these 2-inch blocks, such as this Burmese blackwood, for $12 for this little short block. Actually, this is for 12-inch block, but some of these prices, they vary and as wood becomes scarce, or it might be Cocobolo, or it could be Chechen. These are what I refer to as uranium enriched wood because they tend to be very expensive because they're imported from Central South America or Africa or Southeast Asia. There are some U.S. woods that are suitable for hand thread chasing to some degree. Examples of that are Osage orange. That's a possibility. The domestic woods generally can vary from piece to piece. All woods can, of course, vary from piece to piece, but some pieces you pick up, you might be able to hand thread chase, and you pick up another piece of the same species, and you may have a problem with it. You can cut threads in mountain laurel, mountain mahogany. I've had real good luck with fruit wood such as Bradford pear. I've had pretty good luck with dogwood, and of course this is at 16 threads per inch. They generally will not support a finer thread than that. Schedule 40 PVC can be good to practice on because it's very dry, has a tight grain density. Just joking, but it is good practice. You can also turn acrylics, plastic. They've got some synthetic ivory, so there are some non-woods that you can thread with. So one of the aspects of these threads on the size, let me give you some example. If you're using a very fine exotic wood such as this, could be blackwood, the 20 threads per inch work, but it's a pretty small box, and the wood is quite pricey. probably boxwood might be $3 an inch for a 2-inch exotic stick. Then we step up to something that's more this size, which is this wood is not marked, but again, this is what I call uranium enriched wood. It's some type of fairly expensive import. 16 threads per inch is a good size for this kind of box, and these typically 2 inches because that's the size you typically get those exotic. You get blocks of wood in 2 by 2 by 12 inches, 24 inches, 18 inches. Other types of wood, there are a number of them that are exotic. Lignum vitae, this will hold the 20 threads per inch. Mopani, which is a very fine wood, it will hold it at 20 threads per inch, although this particular one happens to be 16. But 16 or 20 is appropriate for a 2-inch, but probably 16 is better. Then you get one a little larger. In this case, this is domestic dogwood. This is hand chased with 16 threads per inch, which is a very good size for this box, which is, probably close to two and a half inches in diameter. When you start getting to larger boxes like this acorn, which is approximately closer to 3 inches, then the 10 threads per inch looks appropriate. Now I've got a disclaimer here. This box was cut on a jig. If you want to know the difference between a cutting with hand thread chasers or jig, you might want to watch this video that I've had linked to before, because the two woods here, neither one of these lend themselves to hand thread chasing because they're too soft or not tight grained enough. And that's this is a piece of mahogany and this is a piece of spalted maple. But that said, the 10 threads per inch is a good size, but you're going to have to use more expensive wood, or you're going to have to use wood that's been stabilized if it's a domestic wood. Okay, so we're back on technique. Let's look at doing the interior or recess threads. One of the important considerations is you have to have parallel walls, just like you have to have parallel walls on the outside. So one of the techniques of doing that is, let me show you with a small 6-inch ruler. I've seen folks demonstrate this with pencils, but I find that a small 6-inch ruler works the best. You place it against the wall, and then you just look down and see how does this match up against your bedway. It ought to be parallel. In this case, it goes in a little bit, which is not uncommon. When you go to hollow, you have a tendency for it to dovetail a little bit out. So we're going to come back in here with a box scraper and clean that up a little bit. And I'm going to do that with another tool called the Inside Out tool. We can spend more time talking about that in a future video, but basically I'm just going to come down the walls here. Again, we're going to get the speed back up from what we were before and come in with this line of this, what's essentially a specialized box scraper, and come straight in. And then check it for square again. Getting better. And then we've got to cut a recess, so we're going to use a recess tool. Again, at least as wide as as 1 thread per inch. I'm going to use this shop-made version of a recess tool. Here's an example of a recess cut behind where the threads are going to be on the lid of a box, and I did this with an Allen wrench shop-made recess tool. Alright, so next thing we're going to do, just like before, we're going to take another ancillary tool, a point tool. I've talked about this a number of times in a number of videos, and show you how to make that if you're interested in making a point tool. That's with the 3 facets on it. I'll have a video to that, and I've got Amazon links of where you can buy this steel. So we're going to just, again, chamfer the edge a little bit, because we just can't make that transition if we leave that sharp corner. It's just going to hit that and catch and start ripping. Now this is a piece of Osage orange, which is a domestic wood that tends to thread fairly well. I think I've mentioned I've used Bradford pear successfully, and I've used dogwood successfully, and I've used holly successfully in the United States. I've also used this mountain mahogany that I mentioned that's grown in the desert, very hard to get, not sold commercially. And I was gifted some by Reed Gray some years ago, which I appreciate, and it works real well. All right, now I'm not going to use the traditional armrest, which I showed earlier. It's ancillary tool. Some folks think this is essential to thread chasing. Others think it's totally unnecessary and it's archaic and only from tradition. I lean toward first, but I'm going to show you that it can be done without it. Again, we've got to leave ourselves a little bit of room. Again, we're using the female internal tool. We're going to come in again at a slight angle. We're going to turn the speed down to somewhere around 300 or so. Maybe 400 for the initial thread strike. That seems to work a little bit better to have it going a little faster. Again, put the index finger on top, comfortable stance. I've got a few threads struck. I'll slow it down a little bit. Here's a little different view as I slowly bring it around, making sure that the chaser is parallel with the floor. Now I can rotate it or twist it just a little bit more as the negative rake scraper. I need to be cutting on or slightly below center. Sometimes it helps to soften the wood a little bit, to relax the wood with something such as mineral oil or dishwasher detergent in water, and that helps. Another item I would mention is you don't want these threads to be too sharp. They're going to be somewhat flat on the top. If not, you could go in there with that point tool that I showed you earlier and come in there and just take the crests off the top of those. Typically in box making, you're going to do the female lid first because you only get one shot at it. Very difficult to adjust this to the male threads. It's easier to adjust the male threads to the female threads. There's fancy calipers you can buy to help you size these right, or you can do this old tip that's Alan Batty shows in a video on a commercial video he did that's now available free at Craft Supply on their website. But you cut a tiny little tenon that will just fit inside snugly in the threads. Again, you want to make sure that these are the side walls are parallel, and then you're going to chamfer those edges, that leading edge and this leading edge, because this second tenon is the one that you're actually going to be striking. Again, leave yourself a little bit of a good finger's room there. Get a comfortable stance. Have a sharp tool. Get your speed down. And start thread chasing. In this case, I don't like this button here on top, so I'm going to just turn this upside down. Like that. Now, I forgot to put the recess in there, so I'm going to get a parting tool. In this case, I'm going to use a thin parting tool because it's just about the same size as thread, 16th thread per inch. Get the speed up a little bit. Go down about width of the tool. I might have to come back and readjust that. Again, we're going to slow the speed down again. Put my finger on top. Left hand doesn't control the tool, only keeps it down on the tool rest. Lift the handle. because it is a scraper. Gradually bring it around. Now we're going to soften up relax the wood just a little bit. Again, paste wax or mineral oil with a little beeswax in it will all work. And again, if you're using oily exotic woods, rarely necessary. Now I know these are too large because the threads haven't started encroaching on this little tenon. Not even close. So what I've got to do, I can't keep thread chasing with these sharp edges or it'll have a tendency to crumble. So I'm just going to come in there with any number of tools. I could use a skew and take those threads down just a little bit, but I'm going to leave enough of the threads there so I don't have to start the whole thread chasing again. I'll have some tracks down, and because I'm taking that whole tenon down, I need to increase my recess again. And you can see I still have some threads started, so that makes it a little easier. Makes it a lot easier actually. Again, get the speed up a little past 300. Again, I'm pulling out before I hit the wall here and rip out those threads. I don't see threads encroaching on that lead tenon, so I think it's still not a good fit, but we're getting closer. Again, I've got to take that down just a bit. It's like fitting a lid to the box. You got a successive approximation. If it gets too small, you got to start all over again, but you could do that again with the box bottom by moving the tenon down, whereas you'd have a very difficult time adjusting the female thread. Gradually bring it parallel. Okay, we ought to be getting pretty close. Looks like it's beginning to thread on. You only need 2 or 3 threads. This is kind of snug. I think I wound up getting this one a bit dovetailed. So we can take off some threads in front because I've got too many, and that may make all the difference in the world. You can't cut them off this way. You need to come off this way. If you come off this way, bad things tend to happen. So you're going to use some type of scraper, or in this case, I think I'll probably just use a skew as a scraper. Back off just a little ways. Get the speed up a little bit. Now I'm just going to touch up that corner just a little bit. And let's see how we do. And when they get real snug like this, you don't need much. Maybe a little paste wax and just let it sit. So I like to use something like this, Minwax paste wax. And just a little bit of a toothbrush in there. I've been using this thing for years and with no end in sight. Just rub it in real good. Rub it in the other one pretty good. let's see if that doesn't make a bit of a difference. Gotta be careful not to cross thread it. This one's kind of a sloppy thread, but there. Yeah, this one. Yeah, this one I think will be just fine. I'll let it sit a little bit, and I might have to take one more pass. The other possibility, and rather than thread chase one more time, is just take the crests off the threads. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just a bit of fine tuning. And that's all it took for this in this case. So why do we want to make threads? Well, maybe we want to put a threaded top on a cremation urn or a little small pet urn. Maybe we just want an intriguing acorn box for people to marvel on the threads. Or maybe we just want to turn something whimsical for fun. Lots of good reasons. If you're interested in seeing a video that shows the comparison between hand thread chasing and using a jig, click on the link above. If you want to know more about just using a jig, click on the other link. Y'all stay safe and come on back here.